let's jump right into this. When you hear the word Buddhism, what pops into your head? You know, a lot of us immediately picture a single, super rigid set of rules, or maybe just one specific type of monk meditating in total silence. But actually, scratch that. It's so much more dynamic than that. We're talking about an incredibly diverse, living tradition that has literally been evolving for 2.5 millennia. Over 2,500 years, it's adapted to everything from freezing mountain peaks to lush tropics, and even massive modern cities. It's not just one road, it's a whole network of vastly different paths. But here's the kicker. They all lead toward one ultimate goal. Let's find out how these different paths actually work. Okay, let's dive into this. What you're seeing here isn't just a simple design, it actually contains the entire teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Wheel of Dharma. See those 8 spokes radiating outward? Those represent the Eightfold Path. The Buddha laid this out as the ultimate way to finally get released from the pain and frustration of the everyday world. But focus on the very center for a second, the hub of the wheel. That central hub symbolizes nirvana. No matter which of the many paths a Buddhist is walking, that hub is the singular, ultimate goal they are all striving for. Now, before we really get moving, we need to demystify a couple of terms that can sound a bit intimidating: samsara and nirvana. So in Buddhism, there's this core belief that everyday life is, well, ultimately kind of an unsatisfactory experience. It's full of pain, and the belief is that after we die, we're just reborn into this world, time after time. That endless, painful, spinning cycle of death and rebirth, that's samsara. Nirvana, on the flip side, is the escape hatch. It's the release from that cycle into an indescribable eternal peace. Honestly, you can think of the entire ecosystem of Buddhism as a giant toolkit designed to help humans navigate their way out of samsara and into nirvana. So, how do different cultures actually pull this off? Well, here is our flight itinerary for today's explainer. We'll start with Theravada, the way of discipline. Then we're off to Japan for Zen, the way of meditation. After that, it's Vajrayana, the way of ritual. And to wrap it all up, we'll zoom out and look at the massive 2,500-year journey that ties it all together. All right, first stop on our itinerary. Section 1, Theravada, the way of discipline. I want you to imagine being instantly transported to the lush, tropical environment of Sri Lanka. Fun fact, this is actually the oldest continuously Buddhist country on Earth. And man, the sensory details here are just incredibly striking. The shrines dedicated to the Buddha are absolutely gorgeous. We're talking a complete riot of bright oranges, deep blacks, vibrant reds and greens, with the air heavy with sweet incense. But look at the intense contrast between that vibrant aesthetic and the monks themselves. They live lives of absolute austere simplicity, shaven heads, simple, unadorned orange robes, strictly limiting their worldly possessions. It's a massive, striking difference. And this brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the perfectly balanced spiritual ecosystem of the Theravada path. For the monks, following a super strict code of discipline, which comes straight from ancient scriptures, is absolutely crucial. It's the foundation. By exerting intense control over their bodies and minds, they're able to meditate effectively and push toward nirvana. But wait, what about the lay people? You know, the everyday villagers? Well, for them, providing food to the monks or doing acts of service is how they gain spiritual merit. This merit ensures they'll have a better rebirth in their next life. It's an amazing synergy. The lay people physically support the monks, and the monks provide essential spiritual guidance right back. Moving right along to Section 2, Zen, the way of meditation. Okay, let's completely change our climate now. We're leaving those warm tropics behind and heading straight into the stark, profoundly cold mountain monasteries of Japan. You can see the visual contrast immediately. Instead of those bright, loose orange garments, Zen monks are wearing somber black robes, which makes total sense for the freezing Northeast Asian weather. Just imagine walking into one of these rooms. You'd instantly smell the earthy, distinct scent of woven tatami mats. The architecture is incredibly austere. Bare walls, clean lines. Because here's the thing. The entire physical world in these monasteries is meticulously designed to promote just one thing: mindfulness. Literally every basic action, whether it's eating, sweeping the floor, or just going to bed, is highly ritualized. It forces the monks to pay absolute, extreme attention to the present moment, perfectly prepping their minds for deep meditation. Now, within Zen, there are actually 2 major forms. Both use intense mental focus as a psychological tool, but they go about it in totally different ways. First, you have Soto Zen. This focuses heavily on sitting in the lotus position, totally emptying the mind, and paying razor-sharp attention to breathing. It's all about realizing the true nature of reality through sheer stillness. Rinzai Zen, on the other hand, it takes a way more disruptive approach. They use these things called koans. Have you heard of these? They're basically riddles that literally have no logical answer, like none. The idea is that by wrestling with an entirely unsolvable riddle, the mind gets so frustrated that it's abruptly forced to break right through its own mundane, everyday logic. Boom. Sudden enlightenment. Up next, Section 3, Vajrayana, the way of ritual. All right, from those incredibly quiet, stark halls in Japan, we're shifting gears dramatically. Picture stepping into a massive, packed arena. Think Madison Square Garden levels of energy, hosting a huge, loud, colorful initiation ceremony led by the Dalai Lama himself. Welcome to Tibetan Buddhism. This is an absolute riot of sensory contrasts. You've got monks wearing bright robes and these huge, tall, feathered yellow hats. You're feeling the heavy, rhythmic bass of exotic instruments right in your chest, hearing the deep, powerful chants of massed choirs, all while thick, sweet, smoky incense just fills the air. It's intense. You see, unlike some paths that kind of try to deny the physical body, Vajrayana completely embraces it. It uses the entire human body and all of its senses as a vehicle for salvation. So the crucial point is that this path, which is actually often called the way of the thunderbolts because they believe enlightenment can strike suddenly, is intensely rigorous. Seriously, to even be allowed to begin the higher meditations, practitioners have to complete what are called preliminary practices. It's all about building a massive base of spiritual purity. And get this, we are talking about doing 100,000 full-body prostrations on the floor. Then 100,000 symbolic offerings, plus 100,000 recitations of a sacred mantra. It's an unbelievable physical and mental commitment just to get to the starting line of the really advanced stuff. Now, as you'd guess, ritual objects and symbols are incredibly important here. For example, monks use a dorji. It's this small brass scepter that represents a lightning bolt, symbolizing indestructible reality and spiritual power. But for me, the most breathtaking symbol in this tradition has to be the mandala. Have you ever seen one of these being made? They are these unbelievably intricate, complex maps of the universe built using millions of brightly colored grains of sand. Monks will spend weeks painstakingly placing the sand, literally grain by grain. And what do they do the absolute second it's finished? They destroy it. The whole thing is swept up and poured into a river. No hesitation. It is just the ultimate powerful visual lesson on the temporary, transient nature of human existence in samsara. And finally, Section 4, a 2,500-year journey. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing exactly how one single religion evolved into the three vastly different cultural practices we just explored. I mean, Sri Lanka to Tibet is quite a leap. But if you trace the geographical footprint right here, you can literally see how the teachings flowed outwards from the Ganges River Valley in India, where the Buddha first taught around 500 BCE. As the ideas spread like wildfire, carried along trade routes by merchants into China, Korea, Japan, Tibet, and Southeast Asia, the tradition naturally adapted. It morphed to fit the climates, the cultures, and the specific psychological needs of the people it met. It didn't force one rigid aesthetic on everyone. Instead, it was like planting the exact same seed in completely different soils, resulting in entirely different-looking trees. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because watching this evolution over the centuries is just incredible. Starting way back with the Buddha achieving enlightenment around 525 BCE, we hit these massive milestones. By 50 CE, it's already making its way into northern China. Fast forward a bit to 1175 CE, and Rinzai Zen is officially taking root over in Japan. And hey, this definitely isn't just ancient history. Look at 1950 CE. We're seeing the very first Zen groups becoming active right here in America. This timeline beautifully captures not just the global expansion, but the sheer, incredible endurance of these ancient teachings across 2.5 millennia. As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to bring all this ancient wisdom directly back to your modern life. Think for a second about the psychological tools we've just uncovered. If you had to choose a tool for your own mind right now, which path do you think would best help you navigate the absolute chaos and noise of our modern world? Do you think you'd thrive on the strict, community-supported discipline of Theravada? Would you maybe prefer the austere, riddle-solving mindfulness of Zen? Or does the loud, sensory-rich, active ritual of Vajrayana speak to you more? Honestly, it's a fascinating question to ponder for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through history today. Keep exploring and keep learning.